Okay, I'd like to discuss some quadrant uses of Burton bands posterior and Vursawedge. So I found with a lot of quadrant cases, I end up with a couple of consistent issues, and one is when I kind of bump into an MOD next to a DO or an MO. I end up with kind of one odd surface that requires a sectional matrix, and that can interfere with another sectional matrix. I do a lot of trimming of my sectional matrix bands to help reduce the amount of interference in these areas. But if you're having trouble placing, MOD sectionals, you're not alone, as it can be quite cumbersome. And if you don't identify the fact that these are often interfering with one another or can interfere with one another after the ring is placed and really dislodge, mess things up for you when you least expect it, just something to kind of keep a lookout for. But when I do these cases, so if I see an MOD and then an adjacent class 2 situation, what I like to do is I like to use 2 sectional matrix bands for the adjacent, and then a Burton bands posterior for the kind of the odd surface, if you will. And I always choose the odd surface as being one of the surfaces of the MOD. In this case, you also kind of have a random distal on the bicuspid here. What I do is I take the Burton bands posterior, which is this device, which is a Vursawedge with a pre-contoured sectional matrix on top, and I'll place that on the odd lesion. So you can either place these from the buccal or the lingual palatal aspect, and you just push it into position like so. Now what this is going to do is it's going to kind of free up a lot of the area here and here for your ring and your sectional to focus on this kissing contact here on the adjacent class 2s, which is important. You don't have to worry about this little area back here anymore. If you get a good Burton bands posterior in here, it kind of stays out of your way. You can see it's very streamlined. You've got your marginal ridge defined and your gingival margin sealed. You can choose whether or not to use a ring on this, and in quadrant cases, I often do, just to make sure that we get contact. But for the adjacents, what you're going to do is take the Vursawedge, and you'll just pop that into place like so. And then as I push it into position, you can see how the wings of that wedge follow the sulcus of the 2 teeth and allow the wedge to really seal and push that matrix against 2 very differently contoured teeth. And in these cases, you can either choose to ring stack or ring hop. So ring hop just means that you put one ring on one area, restore that, put the ring on the next area and restore that. But if you were gonna stack, then you would place your ring on your Vursawedge quadrant first here. And again, you just engage the split wings of that Vursawedge like so. And then you take your second ring, and I'm going to flip the Dentec around so I just get a better access here. And you do the same thing, just for the posterior. Now with the posteriors, when using a ring, you do not have to go in between the split wings. If your wedge is really straight and you're not wanting to mess with the setup, then simply just treat this like a normal wedge and just pop the ring over the top and allow the split wings to come through the middle. I do that sometimes. It kind of depends on the case, but more times than not, I grab at least the side attached to the matrix and let the ring really pull that against the tooth and really give me a good gingival seal. But you can see, just by taking one of the matrix bands away in this case, or like a free sectional, it really frees up your workspace here, especially as the rings start to wrap these sectionals around the teeth. You know, you're greater than halfway around that tooth, and this is a molar. So if you had another full sectional here, these would be interfering here and not allowing them to sit properly, which can ultimately impact how the whole sectional sits in this area and really kind of cause issues with your contours and your contacts and give you trouble. But you can see this is a stacked system. We have the split wedge from the Vursawedge, the wings split by the ring, and same thing with the Burton Bands posterior. Now another situation that the Burton Bands posterior is really effective is when you've got sequential single non-adjacent restorations, which I see from time to time. I probably see more commonly the adjacents, which is no surprise, but sometimes I'll get like a string of 2 or 3, MOs or DOs right in a row. And it can be cumbersome to try to place 3 sectionals, 3 wedges, and then 3 rings and trying to move down the line. And if one thing gets bumped, it's all gone and you're starting over. But the unique thing about these Burton Bands posteriors is that these units are one piece. And so when you place them, they're super stable, and you don't have to worry about the sectional floating around on you or the wedge not engaging, or the sectional more often just kind of floating up and not sealing your gingival margin. And so in this case, you can also ring stack, and that's what I've found that the system does really well as well, is it allows you to ring stack very easily. So these wedges, when you just follow the the leader or connect the dots with these, you just follow the split wing, let your ring go in between those split wings of the posterior wedge. It really just kind of sets your ring right where it's supposed to go, and the ring's not wondering or floating, where to go. And this is a very simple, quick setup. And like I've said in previous videos on this posterior with the ring like this, you've got, a real nice area here that's well sealed on the axial walls and especially in the gingival margin. If you leave some flash on the occlusal area here, that's a quick finish. That's it's like a few seconds, but you leave flash down in the gingival box or at those axial line angles at the gingival margin, that's minutes of polishing, and it can be quite cumbersome. So it's a very unique device that kind of streamlines basic quadrant cases like so, but can also be really effective in these kind of unique cases where I found myself really having a hard time trying to decide, how to manage this and how to become more efficient. And just having a single matrix wedge unit on one of these surfaces really makes a difference.